Welcome back. New efforts this morning to stop Texas from defending itself from the floating barrier installed back in July crossing the border illegally. Texas has borne much of the brunt of Biden's open border policy, which has seen a record 8 million illegal border crossings under the Biden administration. Border sources telling Fox News' Griff Jenkins for the fiscal year, nearly 475,000 migrants have been encountered at the border, with just over an additional 60,000 gotaways. This is just since the end of October. In addition to the floating barrier and in an effort to alleviate the drain on financial and social resources in Texas, the governor has also sent nearly 70,000 migrants on buses to sanctuary cities across the country. Joining me right now with the state's response is Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Governor, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Maria.
How will you respond to this federal appeals court demanding you remove those buoys from the Rio Grande?
Listen, with all due respect, the appeals court got it wrong, and the reason is because they relied upon a law more than 100 years old, saying that we could not deploy these buoys in the water, preventing people from entering the United States illegally, because the waterway is categorized as a navigable waterway, which is absurd because it is not navigable by definition when you have literally thousands of people able to walk across it every single day. It's not used for transportation of boats up and down that riverway, and so it's completely not navigable. We had a majority Democrats who were on that panel making that decision, what Texas is going to be doing, and we will be seeking what's called an en banc ruling by the entire Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And if we lose there, we will be taking that to the United States Supreme Court because we know Texas has the right to legally deploy those buoys in the water to prevent people from entering our country and our state illegally.
So you're not backing down, and you're prepared to take this all the way up to the Supreme Court then?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me get your take on the assessment today of the southern border. We know that we've seen new numbers of would-be terrorists coming through. What can you tell us about the apprehensions today? Is it the worst it's been, or has it been alleviated a bit?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things very interesting. For one, the problem is extraordinarily bad. The numbers are high, and it's because Joe Biden continues to lay out the welcome mat, welcoming illegal immigrants into the United States of America. That said, what we've seen in our numbers in the state of Texas is because of the wall that we have built, because of these razor wire barriers that we have built, Texas is now no longer the #1 illegal entry point. It is the Tucson sector, the San Diego sector, and other states. And Texas is causing the cartels to have to alter their routes, their routes where people are coming across the border illegally. That said, Texas is having to step up and do even more to make sure that we deny illegal entry into the state of Texas. And as a result, Maria, in 2 weeks, I'll be signing a new law in the state of Texas that will make it illegal for people to enter the state of Texas from another country illegally, and authorizing every peace officer in the state of Texas to arrest those people entering our country illegally.
Well, what you just said is so critical, telling us that this crisis has gone beyond Texas. It's not just Texas now. You're talking about Arizona being a critical issue. We're going to talk with Carrie Lake about that coming up. But I want to get your take on what you're going to do as this court process plays out. In other words, you're going to leave those buoys in place until the court process plays out, when you take it, when you go back to the federal appeals court and then possibly the Supreme Court.
So, Maria, not only are we intending to try to keep the buoys remain in place, but we continue to be adding more barriers. Maria, we either have already built or have under construction more border wall than what the Trump administration was able to put up. We are building these razor wire barriers with National Guard standing behind them, preventing illegal entry. And we will be passing this law to arrest illegal immigrants coming into the state of Texas. And so we, as a state, continue to deploy more action, fighting back against the Biden administration's open border policies, doing everything we can to prevent illegal entry into our country.
Governor, what can you tell us about these Chinese nationals that are crossing into the country? I'm not sure if you heard my conversation with Kristi Noem a moment ago, but this China threat is getting worse and worse. She's worried about the food supply, but we are all wondering why so many Chinese nationals who are military-aged men are using the southern border to enter into America right now. What can you tell us about that?
Listen, well, first, it is extraordinarily dangerous because, first of all, as you point out, we have people from China coming here. We also have people on the known terrorist watch list who are coming across the border. And so there's extraordinary dangers caused to our country by Biden's open border policies. And obviously, Biden is doing nothing about it. And that's why Texas is having to step up and apprehend as many of these people as possible to make sure that they're not posing a threat to our country. But this is a very serious existential threat to our country caused by Joe Biden. And that's exactly why Texas is taking extraordinary steps to try to crack down on it.
And you know, we just showed these new migrant numbers as of the end of November. I mean, it's just such a short period of time, and we're seeing the numbers spike in the new fiscal year. I know last week you were with President Trump. You endorsed President Trump. Tell me about that meeting, why you had the 45th president in Texas to talk about what was going on. We were in a much different situation under the Trump administration.
Well, you're exactly right. And so President Trump joined me on just before Thanksgiving to thank the troops that Texas has on the border, serving them Thanksgiving meals. And I endorsed President Trump at the time for this simple reason that Americans need to remember. It was just 4 years ago under President Trump that we had the lowest illegal border crossings in 40 years. And we had that low number of crossings because President Trump put into place 4 very simple policies: the Remain in Mexico policy, the Title 42 policy, the end of catch and release, and the building of the border wall. And maybe you can add to that the fact that President Trump said, listen, if you want to come to America legally, you can do so legally. If you're trying to come here illegally, you're not welcome to be coming here. What I do know is that President Trump, if he is reelected as President of the United States, because he has proven the ability to stop people from coming here illegally, he will be able to achieve that and restore normalcy and safety at our border and push back and deny the illegal entry of terrorists, of the Chinese, and people who pose a danger to our country.
Yeah, it's just extraordinary. We were at a 40-year low under Trump, and now we're at a 20-year high under Biden. Were you surprised that Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas actually failed? I mean, Alejandro Mayorkas has told us umpteen times that the border is secure.
For one, I am surprised that it failed, because if ever there was anybody impeachable, it would be Mayorkas, for 2 reasons. One, he's failed to do his job in the executive branch. He's failed to execute the laws of the United States of America. That unto itself is an impeachable offense, but also because of his repeated lies to the United States Congress about the safety and security of the border. He deserves to be immediately removed from office.
Governor, thanks very much for your leadership on this. We are watching this closely, and of course, we recognize the national security threat that exists. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Maria.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott joining us this morning in Texas.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.